All right. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. Not sure where you are, but in the Midwest, it is so cold and snowy. Trees have started exploding in certain states. I am coming to you live from my basement where I'm watching the snow pile up even higher than it was before this snowy Sunday morning. Not sure how much you're supposed to get, but depending on who you ask and whatever grocery store you go to, you'd think the apocalypse is looming. All that said, though, we had another unfortunate incident in Minnesota, another Rorschach test, unfortunately, and it's rather exhausting to see the opinions and the takes and whatever people see take the form of whatever political ideology they've attached their worth and their ego to, and whoever they like to virtue signal their fealty to. This case, it was a Veterans Affairs nurse, ICU nurse by the name of Alex Pretty. I think that's how you say his last name. Not some crazy lunatic leftist sort of rioter or protester, it would seem. And even if he was, not like that's justification for force, anyways. There's plenty of video from different angles leading up to the event. He was simply standing there observing, practicing his First and Second Amendment rights. Yes, he had a concealed carry on him. He had a permit to do so. I don't know how you obtained that in the state of Minnesota, but that's neither here nor there. So he was practicing his First and Second Amendments peacefully when basically some welfare recipients decided that it would be right to team up on him, like 1-on-6 or something, mace him, drag him to the ground, pistol whip him, kick him, do all this shit. And then through all of this, if you watch the video, there's an individual from ICE, a guy in the gray jacket, um, runs away from the interaction. He's kind of acting a little erratic by the time he gets towards the camera, sort of off or away from the point of contact and what's going down there. Well, it turns out that particular poor trained moron pulled Alex's gun off his body, and then fired around. I don't think that was a round that went into Alex, but it sent all the other officers firing into him. So once again, you see very poorly trained wannabe cops, wannabe soldiers in ICE just not doing their job. I don't even know why they're interacting with the rioters, with the protesters. Just do your fucking job. If my taxes have to go towards feeding you and your miserable families, I would hope that you would at least do your job rather than clashing with the people who pay your income, your salaries in the streets. Again, neither here nor there, though. This particular moron grabbed his P320, and no, the irony does not escape me there. And I will go on record and say that I trust a P320 in any given holster more than I trust it in the hands of an ICE agent that's experiencing any remote semblance of pressure. I would expect an ND from the P320 in the hands of an ICE agent more than I would in an Uncle Mike's or a Serpa or any other subpar holster, really. Simply because I know that these guys are the people who couldn't quite cut it for the police force. These are the guys who couldn't cut it for whatever branch of military they wanted to enlist to. At most, they can qualify as prison guards, is what my understanding is. And given their very fast ramp up to getting deployed and getting thrown out into the streets, I'm beyond unimpressed, and my trust in them, I wouldn't trust them with the change in my cup holder. So, the gentleman dies. A Veterans Affairs ICU nurse dies on his own street for practicing his First and Second Amendment rights, objectively doing nothing wrong up until the lead up of 6 agents piling on top of him and beating him. And even during the beating, he didn't even pull his gun. People are saying, I watched him reach for his gun. No fucking shit, you did too. If you were just standing on your street recording and you had 6 dudes jump on you and start cracking you in the head with the butts of their guns and kicking you and spraying you with mace, you're probably going to be a little scared, right? It's tough. It's brutal because one end of the political spectrum is obviously is crying for help, trying to get attention, trying to make the nation see what's happening. and the other half is rooting it on. And then there's some bastardized and marginalized folks who sort of reside on either side and in the middle, if you will, who either don't want to get involved because they don't like that this is sort of a leftist state and the stuff that's happening is quote unquote happening to leftist people, and the other half that it's just sort of lukewarm involved, and it's this ugly gray human thing that we talk about here all the time. The act that pushes people further away from the state in a very large and meaningful quantity won't be black and white. Unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in. We're humans. There's going to be nuance. There's going to be things that don't really sit with us very well. But that's the beauty of sort of shedding the weight of having to defend and seeking value in virtue signaling your fealty to a political party. You can sort of see through all of this. And if you had, we're I'm guessing that whoever's listening to this isn't from Minnesota giving my listener count. And if you are, then obviously this is a little more applicable to you. But if the federal government decided to send a large group of fairly untrained, unidentifiable thugs, for lack of a better word, to your neighborhood. By the way, you didn't vote for this, you didn't ask for this. And they really started pushing around and actually killing more citizens and people who pay taxes and who pay their salaries than they are going after the bad guys that we're allegedly told that they're going after. You'd start to have an issue too. It's the same reason why all of us, and I can say all of us, had an issue with us sending money to the Israel war, the Ukraine war, bombing Iran, whatever it is. These are our tax dollars going towards things we didn't vote for. None of us want this. This isn't America first necessarily. And while ICE is sort of draped in the America first cloth, it's not the right way to go about the goal that they say they're trying to go about. And I know I'm now sort of levitating away from the Alex Preddy execution on the streets of Minnesota, but I think this is important to address here. We've talked about the monopoly on violence. Yes, it was a very old episode and a long time ago, and we've talked about collectivism, and we've talked about how taxes are stolen from you at the threat of force, imprisonment, death, and whatever, and how all these things, right, that if you vote, if you want the state to fix your problems, this is what you get. Now, that's not to say you voted for this, but you did, like it or not. But to put it into a little bit better of a perspective, if you have a problem, let's say you have to build a bathroom, just for shits and giggles, you need to build a bathroom. It's for a business, it's for a rest stop, whatever it is. Bathroom needs to be built. Based on your experience of stopping in and utilizing certain bathrooms, would you rather go to a private business's bathroom or a publicly owned rest stop off the freeway, owned and obviously maintained, operated by the state? Not sure what it's like where you live, but in Michigan, it's well established that the rest areas here aren't really the safest things, nor are they definitely the cleanest or most pleasant to be around. Now, how do they compare to a shitty gas station in a really rundown and not so safe neighborhood off the freeway? Coin toss, really. But if I were to pick a bathroom of any other respectable business that cares about their customers, cares about retaining customers and making money in their community, they have more of an incentive to keep that bathroom up and making it a nice experience for you to use and come and go as you please, sort of thing. Whereas the state does not. The state does not need you, but they've convinced you that you need them. Same when it comes to addressing a lot of the issues and the concerns that we like to say exists in the sphere of law enforcement and only law enforcement can address. The entire point of whatever iteration of gun culture we're on now is community building. The entire purpose of going through being prepared, of training, of acquiring gear, and skills is to be able to do what we want law enforcement to do, what we pay law enforcement to do, and what they fail so magnificently at doing is keeping our communities safe, defending them and policing them for ourselves. Because I wouldn't trust some outside entity to know how to best defend and protect and keep my community safe through understanding my neighbors and my own backyard. I am much better equipped at doing that job than some external third party that has, by the way, immunity and free will to do whatever they deem fit without any sort of consequences. I'm picking the former over the latter any given day. And that's a very uncomfortable thought to have, right? Because now you're giving up this illusion of security and safety that law enforcement, that the state provides, right? But I also look at it like this: because of law enforcement, because of the state, because of the monopoly on violence, the ability for us to deploy violence, and when I say us, I mean just dirty civilians, the ability for us to deploy violence is hindered greatly, not only by the who jumps, the whatever it is, the loops and the hoops and the jumps, whatever we have to go through to obtain a firearm and any other sort of accessories, maybe want a suppressor and whatnot, are so vast. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, in the back of our mind, the second you pull that trigger, the amount of legal fees and time and energy that will be spent fighting for your life and your rights and your freedoms in court after the fact, no matter how justified pulling that trigger may have been in that moment, is so great that it is a deterrent almost to go about defending yourself and your loved ones accordingly. And this incident that happened in Minnesota echoes greatly. It's a perfect mirror for what happens in New York, in Chicago, in LA, whatever it is. It reminds me of a quote that I heard, and I'm not sure who it can be attributed to. I'll look it up and throw it in post here. But it went something like, everything you hate about me is you, and everything I hate about you is me. In other words, in this nonsense yelling match that is politics, that is the voter cult, with one side yelling at the other, it's red versus blue always. The same things that you hate each other for are the same things that you prop up. So here, let's look at ICE and law enforcement. Just obey them, just follow orders, don't resist arrest. You shouldn't have been there. And if you don't listen to that, you get executed in the street. Take it back to COVID, like I've already said. Just wear a mask. Just get vaccinated. Just go get your vaccine passport, or you're responsible for the death of grandparents, of children. You shouldn't be allowed to leave your house. You should be thrown in jail. You should be taken to a camp to get vaccinated, sort of thing. It's the same thing. It's no different. You change out a few different things, but it's no different than Marxism transforming into critical race theory today. It's the same fucking thing. And it's that insanity that both sides can't see because of how ego driven and this just need to virtue signal to everything and everyone around them, how close they are affiliated and how much they support a made up political team that, oh, by the way, has done nothing to benefit their lives in any way. You cannot point to one thing that one administration has done to you personally that has personally benefited your own life. It is these empty gestures to stroke ego, to make you feel good. It's no different than tearing down statues, than getting rid of Aunt Jemima, than getting rid of Uncle Ben on the rice box, right? That didn't solve racism. That didn't address poor police policy during, riot season back then. It didn't change any laws regarding how the police are able to operate, but everyone celebrated. Everyone felt great. It's useless. It objectively achieves nothing. And so until people can realize that they're no different from the people that they're yelling at, and oh, by the way, all of this yelling and the stoking both sides is only increasing the amount of money and the power that the state gets at your detriment, the spiral only is going to continue and things are only going to get worse in this country. And I hate to break it to you, we talked about this in the group chat. Rome has been burning for several years now, I would say. I think COVID really started the burning of Rome here in America. Roads are getting worse than they've ever been. The snow push here is really starting to prove that there's salt shortages now. plow trucks aren't hitting the roads as fast and as often as they used to. My road just on my street here, it stays unplowed for over a week now. I think there's a great analogy as well of like people didn't realize like Rome had fallen until just local bridges weren't getting repaired, like for traders and people to come and go. It was like you have to be a little bit aware if you're not like in the epicenter of the fighting, wherever the fighting is on a given day, whether it's DC, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's California, wherever the fuck. Well, it's actually in Davos right now, where your American first God King president is sitting among the worst of the worst. Like the Drain the Swamp president is sitting with the worst, scummiest people imaginable, just yucking it up with them in Davos while he's pleading his case about conquering Greenland. You can't make that make sense unless you have the fucking bag pulled over your eyes. But it's hard to see if you're not in the middle of the shit. If you are in your own house, your own backyard, your own community, sort of separated from these hot pockets, it's hard to really tell that things are really going to shit unless you're terminally online, in which everything's already gone to shit. But I notice it greatly here that things just aren't, have never really been getting done, but they're worse here. And so to think that the next election is going to be the most important election of our lifetime, and we have to entrust these people for years and years and years to come to revert the course that the people who came centuries before them have set, is by definition insanity. And I sound insane by repeating that sentiment, that by doing the same thing over and over again, we are just voting for exactly what we get, because it would be insane to think that by doing the same thing for 250 plus years, you're going to change the course that we've been on for these last 250 years. Is nuts. And really the onus is on those people to really explain it and make it make sense to everyone else that that is the right way to go, because we've seen the results, we've seen what happens, we've seen where we are now. We don't want that, we don't need that, and we have to change that. Back to the Alex Preddy thing though, because I want to make sure this gets its due. He went about this in about as good of a way as you possibly could, I think. When I look at the video, when I see what he's doing, he's simply standing there filming. So I actually went back and I rewatched several angles of the video just to make sure I'm not just rambling off emotion with the few that I rewatched this morning in bed. And he's in the street, obviously. He's recording. He's obviously very fired up because, like I said, the federal government's redcoats, their boots, just were deployed to his neighborhood without his vote, without his say, without his consent, without even his state representatives' consent. For those who want to talk about the legal and the whole status route thing as if that really fucking matters. And so he's not open carrying. He's not going the Rittenhouse route, and even if he was, totally fine, as is your right. You can absolutely do that. He was smart enough to not do that, considering how trigger happy these guys are. He's walking around with his phone. He's just filming what's happening, trying to make sure that things don't go as south as they were in the past. And contact with agents were initiated by the agents. He was out of the street. He was on the side of the road with another individual when one particular ICE agent walks up and shoves him and the person that he's with to the ground. And then off you go to the races. 6 or so others pile on. They pepper spray him. They beat him. They pull his gun. Dude in the gray jacket fires the gun. And then the rest is history. Dude wasn't actively trying to impede. He wasn't in his car blocking the road. He didn't try to, quote unquote, run over any of them in the road. And this isn't as if I need to really reiterate my stance here. I'm not doing this because I'm wishing Kamala won the fucking election, or that, you know, we have illegal immigrants in this country. Again, my stance very clearly, which I just said earlier, was that it's not the best way to go about doing this isn't to have the government do it. Because the police state and the surveillance state has already emerged and solidified. I'm not sure about you, but in my state, in the entire lower half of my state now, or the lower right quarter of my state, we'll just say, the flock cameras are everywhere. I see them everywhere now. By my work, on my way to work, right when I pull out of my house before jumping on the freeway, I see one. Didn't vote for them, don't want them, because I know that the state has two ways of deploying political power. And when reading Chodorov, we went over what political power is and what it can achieve. All not great things, but they have two ways of deploying it. One is propaganda, the other is force. And this administration, and I do think the general in government, is completely out of propaganda. There's very little left that people believe, that people can side with, that people can really jump on. And those who are sticking with the state based on propaganda are just the useful idiots who lack the brain cells to think for themselves and to really separate their emotions and their ego from just historical allegiance to a political side and whatever they were taught in school, whatever they read in some 4chan forum. But to the flock cameras, these aren't for safety. They're not going to bring crime down in the area around me. These are going to be used to write speeding tickets. These are going to be used to ding people for not having the right registration, not having up-to-date registration, or seeing who's driving with expired insurance policies, or just following people around they decide they don't like. Hell, when Flock first was hitting the streets in a certain town, I can't remember which now, I'll find the article, a woman was literally arrested, thrown in the back of a cop car without enough proof, really, because some asshole cop looked at some flock camera footage, determined it was her, and just arrested her on false pretenses, completely wrong person. And so the state cannot guarantee safety. Again, police, ICE, all of this stuff, it's a reactive force. They cannot be proactive. Then you start getting to Minority Report, and then that's really not great, because now then you sort of get what's happening in the streets of Minnesota, where it's you look brown, you're probably a criminal, let's go sort of thing. And that really doesn't bode well for natural rights or the Constitution. So we can't have that. And reactive simply isn't good enough for me, and it shouldn't be for you. It's the same reason why I beg you to carry, or to clear yourself and others to carry in your places of worship, because it's not good enough just to say, I hope it doesn't happen. It's not good enough to say, I hope the police can respond in time to stop this person, because the only acceptable response to violence, and to clarify, response to a threat, to violence, to crime, it has to be reactive. Again, we're not psychics. We're not clairvoyants. We can't predict when crime's going to happen. So you have to be reactive to evil acts. But the best reaction is immediate, in the moment there, meaning you and I. It's not a call to the police. It's not review of flock camera footage days, weeks, months later to try to bring someone to justice. That's not undoing the shooting. That's not undoing the stabbing. That's not undoing the trafficking or whatever crime was done. Again, the state's not really there to keep you safe. They can't do that in the moment. They're reacting to something to try to bring some sort of semblance of quote unquote justice that makes people feel whole after the fact and justify their existence of siphoning off your taxes and your savings that would be capital, really, that would leave you better off and happy in your home and in your community. So all this to say, bring it back to the point here, I do believe that communities and individuals should have the right to police their own neighborhoods, their own communities, their own backyards, through the consent of everybody that they share the area with. That is what decentralized power looks like. That is what true communities and tribes look like. It's not letting some third uninterested party come in and just run riot without any consequence. That's how the situation is only going to deteriorate in Minnesota. And if the state got out of our way to defend ourselves, the result would be exactly what ICE and this administration is saying that they're trying to do. If you let us determine who can live around us, if you let everyone determine, hey, I know this individual is a criminal. We've witnessed him commit a crime. He's out. He's done. We can deal with that ourselves, rather than entrusting it to some uneducated fucks in masks and who hardly received enough training to be prison guards take care of it. I would much rather prefer that we handle that ourselves rather than some third uninterested party. But I know I've sort of sound like a broken record there. But back to the everything that I hate about you is me, and everything you hate about me is you, and it being a reflection. this inability for people to police and defend and determine what's best for their own communities is very applicable in both states, red or blue, right? I know I gave the example of the Minnesota ice and COVID, but I think even better is using what's happening now to what happens in other blue states, where you must let that insane animal on the subway, on the street, on public transit, whatever it is, you must let them shoot, stab, beat, rape, mug you. Because if you step in and if you defend yourself, we will throw you in prison. Look at Daniel Penny. Look at that elderly man in New York who just stopped that man from mugging him on the street. They're throwing the legal book at these people for simply defending themselves. Because you're not allowed to use that force. Only the state can deploy that force. You are not worthy. Your life is not meaningful enough. You have to let us use that because you don't have the right. God did not grant you the right to defend yourself and the sanctity of your soul and your body from some insane fucking lunatic. You have to leave that to us, you dumb, useful idiots. And that's no different than what's happening in Minnesota. You need to let us do our job, however we deem fit. And if that's without any sort of warrant to come into your house, without any probable cause, request identification from you, open your car door, pull you out of your car. If we want to shove you and mace you and beat you on the side of the road, you have to let that happen or you get shot. It's no different. I see no difference here. You are not allowed to defend yourselves and your communities in the way that you see fit. You need to let the state do that. And if you don't, you go to prison. And if you don't, you get shot, depending on the state that you're in. It's no different. So commies, Nazis, bootlickers, they're all the same to me. As Black Helicopters said, red and blue, it would make no difference. You know, Kamala Harris just bought a 50 whatever $million mansion in California. So for those saying vote this out and vote blue, you ain't in that club either, hun. It'd be the same way, however it played out. It might not be exactly what's happening in Minnesota, but it's something ugly somewhere else. And I'm a broken record now because at this point, the voter call doesn't care as long as you're dunking and owning the libs or destroying the Nazis on the other side. That's all that you really care about. And this cycle, this downward spiral, and Rome will only continue to burn hotter and faster, in my opinion. Alex Petty situation, like the Renee Good situation, I stand firmly on the side that it was not justified and even actually more retarded, given the fact that he posed much less of a threat leading up to the contact. ICE initiated the contact like they usually do and used way too much force unjustifiably for someone who was simply practicing their First and Second Amendment rights. And obviously I stand with First and Second Amendment rights before I stand with anything else, really. So really kind of hard to make the argument for the other side here. And in true ICE fashion, little trigger happy, whether he meant it or not, pulled the trigger when he shouldn't have, which is honestly very ironic, and got him killed. And while we were watching the Minnesota situation like 5 days ago or so, to further prove my point that it doesn't fucking matter who you vote for, Republicans and Democrats came together. They came together, they worked together, and they got something done. And no, it wasn't justice and it wasn't punishment for those who raped kids. It was to make sure that all cars manufactured from now on have a remote kill switch installed in them that the manufacturer and the state can shut off at their discretion. It's unbelievable. It's so overt now that references to 1984 are a disservice to 1984 because we're so far past like references and analogies. It's just rewriting the book in the most overt way possible right now. And then people still have the gall to have trust in Big Brother and continue funding Big Brother and pleading fealty to Big Brother. There's no reality in which you can make having remote kill switches in all new cars make sense to me. Again, if you trade your freedom for a semblance of security or a feeling of security, you deserve neither. They're no different than the flock cameras. This is no different than the cameras in the sense that it is not going to be used to keep you or I safe. It's going to be used to the state's benefit in every single reality. It's the only way we get to where we are today, where tensions are higher, where things feel less safe, where everyone's at each other's throats, and everyone has less money, by the way, too, but the state. The state has an infinite amount of money. And how effective the propaganda is. And propaganda, patriotism go hand in hand here. When patriotism is interpreted as love for your government rather than your country. I've said it time and time again till I'm blue, black, and purple in the face. No, not black in the face. So I'm blue and purple in the face, that if you love your country, you hate your government because your government is the one that has been destroying it from day dot. But how effective the propaganda is in making people believe that we need the state. We need them. We need ICE. We need these remote shutdown switches in cars. We need the flock cameras. We need vaccine passports and all this other nonsense. We need more background checks and common sense gun control laws, whatever side it is. This need for the state to come in and make things better and make things right, no matter the cost, no matter the taxes, right? The desperate cry for help and for handouts from the state, how effective that is in sort of ensuring their longevity, whereas they don't need us. And it's posed in a way that we think that they do, right? Because, like, again, let's look at the Alex Preddy situation here. We pay their salaries. They can only feed themselves and their miserable families because they steal our savings that would be capital through a million different types of taxes, whether it be on your home, your house, your home, your car, the property your home's on, your things that you sell, things that you buy, the income that you earn, right? Name it. And that's just a few. That's not even counting all the permits you need to go anywhere and do anything on any given day. But they don't need you, right? Let's look at the debt. The debt's proof of that. The amount that we pay in taxes and on permits and other sort of permission slips from the state for things that actually are called freedoms, but, neither here nor there, don't even cover the interest payments on the debt. They don't need us. The only reason why you have an ICE agent or a cop or whatever shooting an American citizen in the street for simply filming them proves a dynamic that they do not need us. We operate under the illusion that we pay their salaries because, again, that's what our money is stolen for. But they print that money for their own purpose anyways. They don't need us. We're beyond the point of needing this government because this government is beyond the point of needing us. And they have not been acting in our interest because of that for a very, very, very long time. We're no longer feeding the beast, but we're still money's still being stolen from us to keep us under the impression that, we really can't do anything about it because, like, this beast is very much interested in keeping you under its foot. The ritual of taxes now is simply a humiliation ritual. It is to keep your morale low, is to keep your spirits low, and to make sure that you are convinced that you're being crushed under the state, while they can't even use that money to make a meaningful dent in any of their debts or expenses that they have on their sheet. They'll print that money. They'll hire an army of masked morons that probably couldn't even complete an airsoft match due to poor training or conditioning or whatever. And then they'll have them shoot you in your own backyard. And in the meanwhile, you'll go, what the fuck? I paid this man's salary. At the end of the day, you don't anymore, though. But how effective that propaganda is into convincing people that we still need this, that we still need them when they don't need us. They see us as a hindrance now. And it's been, a crazy, crazy couple of weeks. Things haven't gotten any better in Minnesota. General temperature check on the internet's not doing great either. This really isn't uniting more people in the middle. From what I can tell, and who knows, the internet is just a cesspool of people, mostly lobotomized at birth. And another topic I have on here is going to address that. But it's what's been happening in Minnesota, these two events, these two shootings and killings of American citizens aren't really uniting the American citizenry like you'd hope. And Yeah, that does suck. But I do really wonder how the history books will be written about this, and not the stupid made up ones you get in school written by Ghislaine Maxwell's father or whoever the fuck. Um, Looking back, just thinking about how this is going to be recorded and spoken of after the fact is a real interesting thought exercise. And obviously, I'm very fiery. I'm very emotional in how I talk about these things. Whether it's kill switches in cars to ice smoking people in the streets, I I remove myself as much as possible from a political viewpoint on it. Again, you and I, we ain't in that club, Republican or Democrat. We ain't one of them. We ain't gonna see any of the money that they say they're supposed to be recovering for us. It's just not gonna happen. It's not how it works. Best example of that is when they decided to go fight a war. It's you and your kids going. It's not them and theirs. You ain't in that club, young blood. I'd pipe down with the glazing. So I remove myself from that as much as possible, and ideally, a political or a book on history would be devoid of that as well. It would analyze the political temperatures and thoughts of the time, and obviously make that known in the literature. But ideally, the display of facts and events is devoid of a political fire, of a political attitude or sort of tint. Impossible, obviously, as we're human and we are all always biased and inclined to pick a side or whatever. If you are involved in voting and believing in the state as this all-knowing God, a collectivist, if you will. But I have a really hard time viewing what's going down in Minnesota as the right thing to do. It's swaddled in cloth that is good, right? It's made up and dressed up in good feelings and good intentions, just like the COVID mandates, just like the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the vaccination mandates, the cards, the everything. Meanwhile, businesses were killed just like people are getting killed in Minnesota. It's tough to know that there's a better way of going about it, but having to also go to having to fight the only way that could ever be deployed of going about it, right? The government isn't going to say, yep, you guys now no longer are dependent upon us. We are sort of relinquishing our monopoly on violence. Not saying we have to use violence to carry out what we'd have to do to police our own communities and keep our own communities safe and prospering, but we will leave those decisions to you. We will get the bureaucracy of the state out of your way, and we will let you do things as you see fit, consensually and in your community, which is really the state's job. The government was originally stood up to safeguard the natural rights of the people, and that hasn't happened in a very, very, very long time, obviously. So it's tough to think about how this is going to be portrayed and reported, and it'll probably just be a brief little chapter in the Donald Trump second presidency, the 250-year birthday of America chapter, and the 250 number, the significance doesn't go unnoticed. But it's difficult to think about how that's going to be thought of and what side you want to be on when you talk to people, down the road about it, whether it be your kids, whether it be your friends or your family, when you sort of gather and go, wow, that was a crazy time, or someone asked you about it, like, where were you? I was very proud in how I was navigating COVID at the time, right? When I first started, everyone was a little afraid. We were spraying down groceries, we were telling everyone, before you leave the house, like, wear one. And then for me, at least a week or so in, I was like, this is gay and retarded. If I'm going out, right, if this thing is as bad as it says it is, I'm going to live my life. I know I'm not supposed to be driving. I'm going to that party. I'm going to that restaurant. I'm going to the park. I'm not wearing a fucking mask. I'm going out because it's my body. It's my terms. Fuck them. That was the general attitude of how I navigated it after about the first week of being sent home from work and lockdowns really kicking in. I was starting to realize if this is as bad as it really is, I'm going out on my own terms. I'm not going out afraid. I'm going out on my own 2 feet, not on my knees, sort of thing. And that's really the attitude that I like to carry through all of this. If I have to do anything, but to navigate a pandemic, if I have to navigate a migrant crisis or a fraud crisis in my backyard, I'm not blindly following the orders of the state. Just not. Because throughout all of history, that has never worked out well. Again, throughout all of history, the parties that commit the mass genocides, the mass violations of human rights, really the parties that are responsible for the suffering of the most people throughout all of human history are governments. So no, I will not be blindly following them. My initial reaction will always be to sort of butt against it. Um, you know, I'm verifying before I'm trusting. I'm not doing this Reagan trust but verify horse shit. And that's just how I look at this thing in Minnesota as well. I don't think I would, if they're on my street, if they're shooting people in my neighborhood, I'm not sure in this moment right now how I would react and what I would do. I think the Alex Preddy sort of character in this, how he acted, what he was doing before he was shot in his own street, is likely how I would have gone about it. Low profile, just observing. He was a little more active in the street than I would have been with actually recording. I might have been on a rooftop or from a shop, story building, 2-3 floors up, just observing, videotaping it. But obviously, I'm not in the Renee Good court. Not really trying to do that. But the low pro sort of concealed carry observer. Honestly, by the way he was dressed, I'm shocked they shot him because he looked just like one of them. I mean, he played the part very well. But yeah, like I see a lot in what he was doing with a lot of like what I would likely do as well if I had really untrained, really loose cannon, itchy trigger finger, LARPing feds on my street who would, whatever that director is doing, walking around his big green like Parker or whatever, thinking he's a fucking like Cadian soldier or whatever the fuck. That fucking nerd. Fuck that dude. Yeah, if I see that on my street, I may be a little more overt with the carry. I may be going Rittenhouse carry on the street. I don't know. But like what Alex Preddy did, again, if you don't stand with him, I'm not sure how you can say that you are a First and Second Amendment supporter. Because watching the video from every angle leading up to and after, my boy did nothing wrong. He did not initiate contact. He was simply filming and observing, and he was shot for doing that. And that cannot sit right with you if you value freedom at any level, really. I'm truly convinced that even if you are a MAGA till the day you die, or vote blue no matter who before the day you die, Jesus, excuse me, there's no way, whether you make it known or not publicly, whether it's in your mind, your heart, or your words, there's no way that can sit right fully. I don't think there's any amount of mental math that you can do, no matter what you say in the comments to make you sound like a fucking retard, that can make you comfortable with that. Because what happened there, and God, I'm going to get flamed for this. You heard us a lot at the start of riot season. That could have been any of us, right? This one rings a little more true with those of us in gun culture, in the gun sphere, who do carry, who would have done most of what he did. Again, he's a little more animated than I probably would have been, but again, it's not my own backyard. It's not my community. I don't know how he knew the individuals that were around or were impacted by ICE being there, so who knows? But that one's going to be an interesting one to sort of watch develop as it plays out and as people start to internalize it and come to terms more with what happened, I think. Speaking of lobotomized at birth, though, I know I touched on that earlier. The dead internet theory has not only been confirmed by AI, but AI has dug it up out of the grave, fucked it, and then buried it again, I'm convinced. Because all I see now are AI slop driven pages. That's it. With slop captions about absolutely fucking nothing. And it's just all useless garbage. And it's the reason why I can't afford to build a new gaming PC now, and why you can't afford a laptop probably too. And you've seen these pages too. Once you've scrolled through your feed, once you've sort of gotten through all the new posts that the people you follow have gotten through, honestly, I wish Instagram would just shut off from me at this point. Maybe there's a way to do that. Once I'm through the new posts of everyone that I follow, you start getting, fed content. All of the content I get now are, finally you found a page that explains, or finally you found a page with like the craziest animal, that stuff. You found like the horror page or whatever. All AI slop. All the videos are fake. The captions are all fake. All the posts are the exact same with the same sort of format style post. That is 99% of what Instagram feeds me once I am through with everything that I follow now. The internet is dead. It's dead for a while now, and AI dug it up and fucked its corpse. That I am convinced of. And it drives me nuts to know that there are data centers popping up where homes could be built, sucking up clean water and natural resources, with only driving RAM costs up for fucking nothing. There's no use case for AI right now. And Microsoft even went on the record and said that they need to develop a use case for it, or they're going to lose it because it's not making money. It's not useful. It is truly just slop shit. And that's my AI rant for the day. I won't waste any more breath on that because my stance on AI has been very well documented, and I stand 10 toes down on that. AI fucking blows. And so here we are. I'm going to wrap this one up here. Jacket's hitting the site soon. I know I said Friday they'd be up, but one got delivered late to a buddy of mine who is testing for quality and sizing. And I sent it to him because I threw it out there in some of the group chats. If any of the fellows wanted to see camo patterns offered as options on these jackets, let me know. I'll try to make it work. And then if they want, they can purchase a jacket at cost to test out, how's the print quality? Does it look, is it not like pixelated? Does it look good? Does it fit well? Just so I can get some feedback on how things are arriving at the door of customers. So one just got delivered to him. I know the snow sort of kept it down. So this week, jackets will be hitting the site. Sorry for the delay. Excuse me. Wow. I'm chugging some water here after a night out with another couple. Grab some dinner, some drinks. Very good. Other things will be hitting the site too as permanent fixtures along with the jackets when it is updated. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for your support in advance. But again, I think I'm gonna leave on that one quote to really help. It really is. It's a simple quote. Like, it's not super deep. And again, I need to find out who's attributed to saying it or writing it down. But everything you hate about me is you, and everything I hate about you is me. This feeds into the concept of misdirected violence and everything else when it comes to looking at things through the lens of red and blue. Both sides are 99% the same. And that 1% is marginal semantic bullshit to give any instance, red and blue, their own particular flavor to appeal to their bases and then isolate the other side. They do the same things in different ways, and the outcome is never positive for any of us. The only ones who ever benefit in any given scenario is the state. Again, you ain't seeing that money. You ain't getting that money. You've only been being made worse off thanks to everything the state has done, and they've only profited. So with that, stay safe, stay warm if you are in these areas of exploding trees because it's getting so cold. I saw areas of Detroit got colder than parts of Antarctica yesterday, so that's kind of nuts. Stay warm, stay stocked up on the stuff that you need, whether it's toilet paper, water, or food. Godspeed. And hopefully by the time I'm talking to you next, it'll be a little warmer, but stay metal till then.